Thank
me
you
hear?
so much, Doreen. Yes. Thank you so much, Doreen. So, hello, everybody. Appreciate you having us on the panel today. I'd be very honored to introduce our panelists who will also speak more to their personalized journey at Kyndryl. We have Wiem Sabbagh, who is the Global Data and AI Consult Leader. We also have Rini Krishnan, who is the Director of Business Architecture and Innovation. And we have Fariba Wells, who is the Global Head of Government Affairs and Policy. So maybe I'll hand it off to you, Rini, first to speak more about your role at Kyndryl, and we can just go down the line.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Rini Krishnan. I am the Director of Business Architecture and Innovation within our CIO Enterprise Architecture function. So my main mission is to enable a business value-led approach to IT transformation within Kyndryl. So that's why my journey here has been with a large focus on bridging the gap between technology and business strategy. So when we speak about AI or automation, right, I'm really more focused on the practical application of these technologies, right? How do we integrate AI into our enterprise processes, not just to drive efficiencies, but to truly transform how we operate at scale? So I'll hand it off to Wiem or Fariba to go next.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you today, and thank you for joining. I'm Wiem Sabbagh, and I lead data and AI consult at a global level within Kyndryl. So in my current role, I'm in charge of building and executing on our data and AI strategy and building the right capabilities to serve our customers in these spaces. I'm also part of the governance committee, Kyndryl AI governance committee, but we'll touch on that more. Maybe just quickly on my background, actually prior to joining Kyndryl, I've been also on the customer side where we've built our data and AI organization, the platforms, the organization, the various capabilities, and help position data and AI as an enablers for the business transformation, and started my career in strategy consulting. Fariba, over to you. You're on mute.
I'm Fariba Wells, however you want to go with it, but Fariba Wells. I joined Kyndryl about 2.5 years ago. I'm head of global government affairs and policy at the organization. My time here at Kyndryl has been fascinating and one that I love to speak about. It's really been great to kind of set up this function within the organization, an organization that really still is not fully well known to the majority, I guess, of our stakeholders, but hopefully that's changing and evolving. My role on this topic, and I'm looking forward to talking about it throughout the panel, has been obviously looking around the globe at what's coming at us on this topic vis-a-vis AI, and I think specifically around regs, we can speak to some of that. But more importantly, also for our organization, working with colleagues like Rini and Wiem and thinking about what our policies and points of view should be on a very evolving technology, mindful that my boss and my team is always thinking about Kyndryl's reputation and the role that we play as we continue to evolve in this space. So delighted to be here with you all today and look forward to both this conversation and any questions that pop up along the way.
Awesome. Thank you, Fariba. And just to kind of kick into it, maybe Liam, we can start with you. I know you spoke about your role at Kyndryl, your background as a strategist. It'd be great if you could tell us about how Kyndryl has evolved in AI and market trends and how we're serving customer interests. I also know we recently did a study, our Kyndryl readiness report, across 3,000 or so C-suite execs and decision makers on their readiness in IT and impact to their business, a lot of which did include AI. So tell us what you're seeing.
Sure, thank you. So let me start with what we're seeing in the market first. So as you know, generative AI has truly been on everyone's lips since the launch of ChatGPT. And according to our recent survey, 98% of companies are investing in some shape, like in generative AI. That's obviously a very important number, but honestly, it's not that surprising given the business value that it can bring. And we're seeing generative AI being adopted by companies across all the industries, banking, healthcare, retail, and so on, and also across the various functions, whether sales, HR, procurement, developers, you name it. And actually, customers are starting to see the value out of these use cases. As Kyndryl, we're seeing the value of generative AI across four main dimensions. One is around increasing the employee productivity, whether through the digital assistants or any other specific use cases for the various line of business personas. Second is going to be around improving the customer experience, whether by augmenting your agents in customer contact centers or by shaping more personalized offers and recommendations. And that actually is going to have a great impact on the revenue part as well. Third is going to be about improving the operations efficiency, so automating processes through generative AI. And we recently are witnessing like trends like the agentic AI that will be helping drive further automation and streamline operations. The fourth dimension is around powering the business insights. So what is really interesting with generative AI is that it's as if you have natural language becoming a coding language. And all you have to do now is like to ask your question in natural language and that gets you the insights from the various systems. Now, let's talk about we as Kyndryl, how we got prepared to address the customer needs in this space with our capabilities. So I think it's important to remind our audience around our background. So we're coming from managing mission critical systems and their data. We've applied AI to it, and this is how we've launched our integrated AI ops platform called Bridge. It's actually our advanced delivery platform powered by AI. So before the generative AI wave, we've actually had some strong capabilities in data foundations to enable AI. But also we had the AI for IT. Again, this is our background. And then we extended into the business side where we also invested in hiring like SMEs with the industry expertise. So what we've done is actually three things. First, we've learned from our customer zero story on how we're applying generative AI internally as an enterprise, as a company, and we'll develop that further afterwards. Second, we've extended our partnership with our partners around generative AI, whether hyperscalers, ISVs, understanding their capabilities and how and when to apply it to our customers. Lastly, we've somehow took our own medicine in a way by infusing AI into our capabilities and services. As I mentioned, Kyndryl Bridge, but also building accelerators and blueprints like our generative AI navigator asset, and also augmenting our delivery teams to serve the customers more efficiently. So all of that has been really instrumental in the way we built our capabilities and drive lessons learned. So today we're helping customers from the beginning of their generative AI adoption journey, identifying the higher ROI use cases, building POCs and MVPs, and then getting ready for the production and then the deployment. And of course, helping them with the right foundations across the stack, the data, the apps, modernization and integration, the infrastructure, and of course, security.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Wiem. And it's really interesting to hear that point on taking our own medicine, which is a great transition to Rini. I know you represent the CIO team of a very large organization. We employ around 80,000 people here globally. Certainly, AI and Gen AI have been used within our own enterprise, which I imagine is having greater interest in doing so. Can you speak more to our evolution?
Yeah, so I actually joined Kyndryl at launch 3 years ago. So it's been crazy to see the organization grow and evolve so rapidly. But it was a transformational couple of years, I think, for everybody, right? In terms of how generative AI has forced the market to completely reevaluate how we do business. But Kyndryl was in a unique position to be able to do that with a carte blanche, right? So we launched as an 80,000 strong organization, which has its own challenges. But we had a lot of flexibility in terms of defining our technology strategy and processes from the ground up, right? So now, before Kyndryl, I spent most of my career on the other side of the table. I was in the AI/ML blockchain startup space and then management consulting. So when I moved in-house to Kyndryl, we had just broken off from IBM, and we were in a very unique position to be able to actually define strategic scope in a greenfield environment, right? At full enterprise scale. So that's where, as Wiem sort of alluded earlier, our customer zero approach started, right? So serving as both an IT services provider and our own first customer. So as Wiem noted, right, is the case for any other customer in the market, our priority as CIO in Kyndryl is always to maximize value while reducing time to value. So with a 2-year timeline, right, to move off IBM infrastructure and redefine our processes while redefining our systems, we were very much in a change the wheels on a moving bus sort of situation, right, which was only made more interesting, right, with AI becoming so much more accessible. So we quickly found, right, that the key is maintaining these realistically scoped transitional states that strategically build towards that target state. So in that way, being a new organization had its perks, right, for our AI journey, especially in how it timed with the first big OpenAI release. So I'd say we were probably at that point in a better position than most to integrate AI into our IT strategy, at least at the scale we were able to, because we were still defining it. So again, because we were already on a transformation path, we were able to sort of lay the groundwork for scaled AI enablement, first by decoupling our application and data ecosystems early on in our journey, setting ourselves up to be able to remain agile as we as a business, right, and as a market evolved. So given the volume of transformation required of us at the time and the relatively short runway we had to do it, we turned to AI and automation to help us get there in small, digestible chunks. So we started first with automation and low no-code development like Power and SAP Build. Then while we were already looking through the lens of process, we started seeing some low-hanging fruit, gaps where we had the most to gain with applied AI. So very quickly, there was this surge, right? A massive surge in the market in terms of enterprise-ready end-user AI solutions and building blocks. So when I say applied AI, I mean, we now had at our disposal things like AI Builder, Copilot Studio, AI Studio, or an Azure shop, right? So to further augment our process automation with an element of intelligent decision-making, data analysis, and content generation, right? So that's where we really doubled down and made a sizable investment into Microsoft Copilot as early adopters. And as of July, I believe we had almost 20,000 Copilot licenses provisioned. So to keep things manageable, right, we kept rollout in phases, documenting use cases to drive adoption, track KPIs, and build a baseline for governance for ourselves, right, in a rapidly changing AI ecosystem, which we're still building on, right? So to answer your question in a roundabout way, yes, it has been a very dynamic 3 years.
No, thank you, Rini, for adding that color. And as a Kyndryl myself, like all of us on the panel, makes me proud to hear that we are experimenting enabling this technology as we're also servicing customers. So we've now heard from both Wiem and Rini about some of the great opportunities that we've identified in Kyndryl, but also doing for our clients vis-a-vis AI and Gen AI. It's also interesting to talk about how each leader has taken a role in building on that foundation for the betterment of our collective stakeholders. The landscape of AI, especially Gen AI, is not one of opportunity alone. It definitely has its risks and challenges. And with that in mind, I'd love to bring Fariba into the conversation and speak more to her role today as a panelist representative for Kyndryl.
Thank you, Iman. So I have a very different vantage point than colleagues Wiem and Rini in the sense that I don't engage with the actual technology or with the customers, whether internal or external, who are looking to use the technology. But I think that's helpful in what I'm about to share in kind of how I see this construct from a bigger picture, larger vantage point. So as I mentioned at the start in my intro, I head up government affairs and policy at Kyndryl. I was very intentional when I came to the company about the title that I gave my team. There's a whole different namings in different corporations. Some are public affairs, some are government affairs, some are just policy, public policy, you name it, policy programs. There's a whole host of names. For me, when I looked at Kyndryl, on the government affairs side, we had and will always have work to do, as I mentioned, to make sure that our government and industry association stakeholders know who we are, now know how we help the economy run, how we operate mission critical systems. We have to tell our story. We have to make sure that kind of we're a voice, we have a seat at the table. So my team has been working very closely throughout the corporate affairs function at Kyndryl with our colleagues and our SMEs here on the call and their practice colleagues to make sure that we get that message out. So that's kind of one category. The and policy side of SHOP is actually twofold. So my team has the responsibility for tracking public policies that arise in all markets where Kyndryl has a strong presence and or where our customers have a strong presence. So it's been a very, very active regulatory time over these last few years, especially in technology. So whether that be around cyber or AI or privacy, my team has that first remit of assessing and determining whether or not talk of policy or actual regulation or enforcement of regulation is going to impact us. So we look at the outside as we think about how that impacts us inside, but also reverse. So and policy, we had and still do have a whole host of policies, corporate policies that need to get developed. And that's where we work very closely with our legal colleagues and our business colleagues to assess what should our policy be on XYZ. So our legal team on data governance and AI has been actively working with us and again with our SMEs on this call to determine what those policies look like. So let me pause for a second on the external, on the regulation, and tackle, the primary reason for why I'm here on this call today is when we looked across, so you heard from Wiem about what our customers are thinking and how their evolution is on AI. You heard from Rini about our customer zero story and how we ourselves are looking to adopt AI more than we already have in our decades of experience, quite frankly. You can't do that. You can't do either of those things in silo operations, right? Kyndryl as a whole needs to have a point of view, needs to have a strategy on the technology, whether it be AI or what's coming down the pike, arguably already here, quantum and what have you. So what we did back in December 2022, first and foremost, we needed to make sure our values were clear. We put out our responsible AI principles around transparency, explainability, reducing bias. Our CIO and our CTO made very clear in a blog post that this is the direction Kyndryl was going to be focused on. This was the foundation of all things AI. From that, we developed our first iteration of a Kyndryl AI policy back in early 2023. Please keep in mind that was the ChatGPT came onto the stage a couple months prior. There's a lot of talk about what ChatGPT could do, what generative AI generally could do. But again, we operate mission critical systems. So we had customers coming to us saying, this is really exciting. We want to look at innovation. We need to do so responsibly. We had the foundation of our principles. We have our SMEs, some of whom are on this call, and we developed our first policy. We iterated on that policy over the months that came after, as we learned more about the technology, as Wiem, as Rini highlighted, as our partnership with Copilot and Microsoft grew, as we looked to do more, and we evolved our policy. And that policy was one component of what is now our Kyndryl governance system. So we focused on putting in place a Kyndryl AI board. 5 of our leaders at the C-suite level sit on this board. They are ultimately responsible for ensuring execution of all external and internal use of the technology aligned with our values and strategy. So that is something that we have talked about in our corporate citizenship report, and we feel very strongly about that. Beyond the Kyndryl AI board, we have the Kyndryl AI governance committee. You have 3 of us here on the call today who sit on the Kyndryl AI governance committee. So we represent the business, which is Wiem and the consult side. We have our CIO team, Rini. We have our CTO. We have myself on behalf of corporate affairs, and we have legal. So we meet on a regular basis. We're constantly evaluating AI use cases, determining whether or not they're too risky. And this is where I bring in regulation and the externalities. We all have to contend with the fact that the EU AI Act is a thing. We have to contend with the fact that US states are advancing on AI regulation. And so while we're all really excited to innovate and to use this technology in our enterprise and for our customers, we need to do so mindful of our own responsible AI principles and values, as well as the externalities of regulation. So the governance committee, we staff the board, we make sure things get to their attention as they need to. We've developed tools and technology within Kyndryl to make it really easy for Kyndryls who want to explore the use of AI to do so quickly, to get it registered, to get it evaluated. And we're really proud of it. That's not to say it's a done deal. Everything gets iterated on, and there are components that we have learned about both our customer engagements and our enterprise focus areas when it came to how we set up governance and what that meant. So I'll stop there. And Iman, I know my colleagues have some reflections to share on how we've iterated from governance and what learnings have come, but I'll turn it back to you, and I hope that was helpful.
No, very helpful. And actually, on that note, on regulatory challenges, maybe Rini telling us more about CIO challenges and how you're tackling them.
Sure, yeah. So we already sort of touched on Kyndryl's role as customer zero earlier, right? So the challenges our customers face are the same ones we face internally. So when we solution with AI, we're operating within the realities of a large organization. And that means tackling the challenges of scale, particularly around governance, to ensure alignment with our architectural and strategic principles. So with the rise of generative AI, right, we were genuinely challenged to find a way to govern a decentralized, user-empowered technology ecosystem, right? But how do you enforce traditional IT governance on non-traditional process-based solutions, right? Like tools like ChatGPT and Copilot, they decentralize IT control. So our biggest challenge was basically, right, and it continues to be, maintaining governance and accountability across our applications, data, and our tech-driven processes, right? So in response, what we did, in addition to the AI governance committee, which kind of looks at things from a broader perspective, cross-Kyndryl perspective, we tap into a portion of that in terms of CIO, and that starts with developing an iterative framework to sort of lay as a baseline to build on top of as AI as a feature, right? So we started with an architecture review board, the SRE boards. We enforce standards around the software development lifecycle for ongoing portfolio rationalization. And as AI became more of a market expectation, we quickly then had to add in cost-benefit analysis frameworks for AI-powered solutions and vendors, right? And this had to then extend to compliance with a focus on data privacy, contracting, identity and access management, and cybersecurity, right? Both at the infrastructure and solution levels. So to that point, Copilot gave us a broad view of our data landscape, and it unearthed some systems and sources that we didn't even have visibility into prior, right? So this pivoted our data governance approach first towards managing sprawl in our data ecosystem, right? Establishing data standards, a taxonomy, a common data model, building out a single source of truth in our lakehouse architecture, governing access to enable ad hoc analysis and reporting. So in that way, I think AI has compelled us to bolster our fundamentals from data all the way to culture, right? We're talking people, process, and technology. And transformation isn't always the fastest path to results. Adoption requires investment, not just in the tools, right, in the technology, but in upskilling, reskilling, and shifting mindsets and culture, right? So I was actually on a call recently where someone was recounting the early days of email when execs would routinely print out emails, scribble responses, and then hand them back to their EAs to send back, right? Because change takes time. Muscle memory governs how we work as humans, right? So with that in mind, as of October, I think our M365 Copilot adoption rate stood at 84%. So that's sizable, right, for net new technology. And that's not just a reflection on Kyndryl, right, but on the technology. It highlights the incremental value, I think, that AI can deliver at the user level that when scaled creates significant enterprise impact. So more than anything, honestly, right, I think the real challenge for us now is sort of sustaining that forward momentum. So not to answer your question with another question, right? But how do we sustain forward momentum? It's not just Kyndryl, but as a market.
No, absolutely, Rini. And really interesting example around the email. I'm a big evangelist and fan of Copilot. I will self-admittedly say one of our execs had called me to teach them how to use Copilot for something that Copilot should have been doing all along. So maybe it's folks like ourselves that are evangelists in the company, but it's a great question. I guess to end it off, same to you, Wiem. What are some of the challenges that your org, that you see clients identifying, and then how do you see the team evolving to address them?
Yeah, sure. And by the way, I love the what Rini has said on the culture. Very, very important piece. So coming back to the AI governance specifically, and from a commercial standpoint, we definitely don't want to hinder the innovation with our customers. It's actually quite the opposite. We want to continuously be in this place of co-creating with customer, innovating, and that's very important to do it in a responsible way. So everything around educating our GTM teams around our governance, policy, and best practice has been critical. Having that monitoring of the use of AI, as mentioned by Fariba, with our customers is also very important. And then evolving our frameworks on how we're assessing the risk, not just the value, continuously enriching our list of validated technology stack, but also the solutions. These are all critical things that we needed to put in place, iterate on, and making sure, again, we're engaging with our customers in a responsible way when it comes to AI. I think what I want to also highlight other on the other key learnings, and as we just heard it from Rini around our customer zero, but also through the various experiences and discussions that we had with our customers. One is around the data foundations. I think it's really important that companies are ready from a data foundations perspective to enable GenAI at scale, but also in a responsible way. And I think there are four major areas that we need that they need to keep in mind as they are getting ready for the generative AI and more importantly to scale it. One is around the data quality. So as you know, AI is as good as your data is, and it's all the more true in the case of generative AI. Due to inherited risks like hallucinations. So ensuring you have the right data quality throughout the GenAI lifecycle is really, really key. The second thing is around modern data architecture. So having several, you know that generative AI is bringing a lot of actually requirements from a data perspective that companies need to be ready with, like the unstructured data storage, processing, like the vector DBs and so on. Like these are key elements that need to have we need to have like on the data architecture front to be able to do generative AI. The third area, sorry, is around data security and privacy. So identifying and protecting the sensitive data like PI data or financial data is very important. So having a proper data classification in place is your starting point. Lastly, and really touch on this to some extent, and Fariba as well, around the data governance and compliance. So who has access to what, and having the proper controls in place and making sure that you're complying with the various regulations that, as mentioned by Fariba. So these are like the main four areas in my mind that customers need to be considering for to be ready with from a data foundations perspective. Last thing, and I want to like just get back to the cultural aspect. Yes, generative AI is really disruptive technology, and I would like to like reinforce that message around the culture and the importance of having like the human Gen AI interaction, the user experience layer as well. When you're investing in Gen AI, both are really core to ensuring generative AI solution evolve throughout like experiential learning and align closely with the user experience and like to the responsible AI guardrails. So it's actually like really drives the adoption of these AI powered solution, execute against the ROI, because like you know that generative AI can be costly, and change management is really, really key again here.
Awesome. I think that's where we'll pause on the panel. I'll stop talking as well. I think we'll have to open it up for questions from the audience. But thank you guys so much, Rini, Fariba, and Wiem, for your amazing insights.
Thank you, Iman. That's some good nuggets in there. So I actually don't see the Q&A panel. Do we have time?
So we've got one question, Rini, that's probably best for you. It says from Carolyn Turpeville, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Can you give an example of the first small step you took into integrating AI into a large company's infrastructure?
Sure. So I think I sort of touched on our approach to applied AI earlier, right? So what we really focused in on was a process-led approach. So we're already in the process of transforming, right? And that includes our processes that are supported by our technology, right? So we were in a prime position to start dictating business case analysis early on, right? In terms of what is it we do today, and then finding the gaps in our current state to fill with AI rather than just adding noise into the system for the sake of noise, right? So what we first did was we tackled the automation use cases. So again, I think I mentioned earlier, we're a Microsoft shop. So we focused in on the Power Platform initially. And as the Gen AI boom, right, kind of railed on, that's where AI Builder and Copilot Studio really became sort of interesting, right? So outside of M365 Copilot altogether, we wanted to look at what does extensibility look like at a use case level. So we kind of honed in on our first set of use cases, several around like contract management, and one particularly around a key area of focus for us in terms of our front office transformation, being in the quote to cash space and pricing. So as we started sort of diving deeper into the pricing process, what we realized was that we had a lot of disparate processes in terms of how global, regional, and local teams were tackling the pricing process and the standard operating procedures around that. So what we did was again, it's a fairly simple use case in terms of document extraction, taking it from OCR to document intelligence and sort of building in our own feedback loop with Power Automate in terms of user validation so that we can train these lighter weight models that we can deploy quickly and pick up and replace as needed as we moved into our target state platforms, whether that's in SAP or ServiceNow.
Yeah, in regard to what Rini just mentioned, absolutely. What we usually advise on our customers to get ready with when they want to test generative AI is one, as Rini mentioned, identifying like the GenAI use cases that are in line with what we're trying to achieve from a business perspective. What are like the business objectives that we're trying to achieve as a company, and then look at the use cases that can help achieve that. But then, as mentioned earlier, it's important to look at the ROI, obviously, the business impact, but also identify the use cases where it's going to be feasible, given the maturity that we have as a company, and then again, that are aligned with our responsible AI guardrails. Once we have that, it's important to start testing the technology, learn from that, and at the same time, getting ready with the right foundations, as Rini mentioned as well, like again, from a data perspective, from an infrastructure perspective, from an application perspective, and so on.
All right.
So Iman, there's another question. Maybe I'll just read it and take it. It says, would you recommend having a department group dedicated to handling AI regulations and ethical scenarios, or have each employee at a company be trained in the base knowledge in regards to the product? I'd say both. I don't think it's an either or. We are all about empowering our employees. There should be no controlling mechanism at any stage to say because how can you control innovation, quite frankly? But that doesn't mean that every employee should be expected to know the latest on regulations, or that there shouldn't be an opportunity for employees to discuss ethical scenarios, which quite frankly warrant a discussion. It's hard for any one person who comes with inherent bias to make a decision on an ethical matter without having some back and forth with colleagues. So the way we have it at Kyndryl is both. So we have the Kyndryl AI board. We, especially the lawyers, but especially on my team as well, we are responsible for making sure the board and all our colleagues are well-versed on regulations to the extent that it matters to their work. We're not going to expect them to know the ins and outs of prohibited, not prohibited, highly risky, low risk. Like, we just have to make sure they understand the parameters. And so when we set up our AI toolkit for actual evolution of, I have an idea, can I actually take it to market? We've identified for them very clearly, does your case hit biometrics, including facial recognition? Does it touch on a public sector entity? We try to make it as simple as possible. That way we can empower the employees to continue to explore and innovate with AI, but we don't want to leave them hanging either. So that's why the governance committee exists, to be able to debate and discuss whether responsible and ethical use of AI is actually underway. So long-winded way of saying both.
Point, right? Like, isn't that just go for all technology, right? There's a level of technical, regulatory, privacy risk to all of our technology workloads. So it is, there's a big effort in Kyndryl in terms of sort of these technologies are democratized. It's more accessible than ever. There's no controlling that. So there needs to be a level of independence and sort of knowing the context around the risk that you are taking as you are working through your day-to-day activities. So we do have like cyber workshops. We have the AI training that we just rolled out, right? Multiple forms of AI training depending on your role. But yeah, I think that's applicable to everything. I think AI is just big right now, right? Fresh in our minds.
Awesome. I don't see any other questions. Doreen, I don't know if,
Good job. Covered everything.
yeah.
I'll take it.
You all covered, totally rocked your subjects. Thank you so much.
Oh, I think we got one more right at the end. With I can ask it. I think this might be for everybody. With more technologies involving AI, how would the transition from open source to enterprise go about?
I think honestly that is one of our larger areas in terms of what our CISO teams are focused in on, right? And that has been a challenge for IT for decade at least, right? In terms of how do we weigh the cost and benefit of open source technology and allow that agility in how our teams operate to continue to do what they do, but to peak efficiency, right? But at the same time, maintaining a level of governance in terms of best practices and standards. So while we do a little bit of, a game in terms of the carrot and the stick, right? And we do have, in terms of networking and infrastructure, a forcing function when necessary. But I think as we're defining the governance around that, and our standards should be around, again, empowering our developers and our engineers and our business functions, right? To be able to do what they do with the tools they have at their disposal. So.
Awesome. I feel like we were just ending on questions. We have one more too. I think this is for everyone. Are there any specific things you can recommend for individuals to prepare for this new area on their own?
Yeah, I personally would say like really to upskill on the AI and generative AI, like understanding where are the impacts that you can drive with this technology. I think it's important to get like some trainings around that. And then again, I think it's important that we also look at how we can use this technology in a responsible way, and understanding the implications as well on that front, like from a society perspective, ethical perspective, and so on.
But I think also, right, like with generative AI, I think there are also a lot of different types of backgrounds that now have opportunity in terms of how we move forward, right? Like if you think about prompt design, right, not even at a prompt engineering level, but prompt design, right? Becoming an SME and being able to communicate your subject matter expertise in a way that is, that can translate to the outputs that you're looking to get. I think that's a massive skill that anyone can work through.
Yeah, as a personal user on the Copilot piece, I have loved reframing my questions for some things I'm preparing on. Yeah, prompt engineering, I feel like will be a very powerful role in the next few years. It already is, but will only advance. I think that's it for questions. Doreen, maybe we end here. But thank you guys so much. Thank you to our Kyndryl folks. And I'll pass it off to you, Doreen.
Thank you all very, very much for coming today, and love the conversation. And again, this will be streaming on YouTube as well, so we could push that out to your constituents as well as to our audience. Next, after this presentation, is countering stress wellness techniques for the workplace. So I'm not sure, maybe all of us can use a little bit of that too. Thank you all so much, and enjoy the rest of your days.
Thanks. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. And that does
Thank you.
start in 10 minutes. The networking cafe is open, so feel free to jump in and connect with others in breakout rooms if you'd like. And we have some great sessions coming up.
Thank you, David.
Thanks.